Roy, what should we talk about?
What's your first name?
Glenn.
Glenn.
Glenn Pennington.
Talk anything you want to, Glenn. Talk about being here and having a fine fun and looking forward for next year and everything that you can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take off.
Are you recording now?
It's running right now.
Folks, this is Glenn Pennington. We're speaking from just off the stage in the Renfro Valley barn, where for the last 3 days there's been really some big things going on. Something we're proud of, and you people out there listening, if you didn't get down, it's sure a shame. This is the third day. This is Sunday, and of course this is a day that we all look forward to, because there's a gentleman came along with his group, and we think is one of the finest gentlemen ever to grace country music, and he has one of the finest groups too. We have this fellow here now. We'd like to talk to him. He has most graciously agreed to talk to us just a minute. We're speaking, of course, of the king of country music, Mr. Roy Acuff. Roy, it's a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Glenn. I really like the word you use, gentleman. They don't always refer to me as a gentleman, and I don't think you could place a finer name to any man than to present him as a gentleman. The king of country music doesn't mean anything at all to me. Years ago, many years ago, I introduced Dizzy Dean and Gene Autry on my stage in Dallas, Texas, in the Sportatorium. And the people had stampeded that place and tore the side of the wall down to get in, and it just amused Dizzy Dean and Gene Autry. They couldn't believe their eyes. And when I introduced Diz on the stage, Diz says, "Friends and neighbors, it's always a pleasure to be on the stage with the king of the hillbillies."
You know something?
So that's how far long back it's been.
This is quite a coincidence, but I heard that interview.
Did you?
I really did.
Well, great.
And Diz is one of the most colorful people, I believe, to come along, and I can't think for how long.
They don't come any finer as a gentleman and also as an announcer for baseball games, and they didn't come any finer back in his days as a baseball player, as a pitcher especially.
That's really true.
Yes,
you know the name gentleman. I haven't had the pleasure of working with you on many occasions, 2 or 3 times, I think, probably. But I hear a lot about you. Everybody hears a lot about you.
I hope part of it's good.
And the word gentleman certainly applies, according to everybody that knows you well. And I think the name King of Country Music, it applies in your case. I can't think of anybody else it would really apply to.
Well, I don't resent it at all. I go along with it, and just like I told you, it was Diz did it, and you know the name Roy, and it refers to a king, royal. It's king. If you look it up in your dictionary, in your encyclopedia, you'll find that it really does. And whether Diz actually did that because of my character and because I was doing good in country music, or because of my name being Roy. You know, Roy Rogers, they call him the king of the cowboys for a long time.
Right.
So I think it was actually the name Roy that did it rather than what all I was doing.
You know, getting back to Diz, I doubt that he spent too much time in the dictionary, don't you?
He slid into first base a few times when he should have been third.
Yes, he did.
The school teachers kindly dragged him a little bit, but he's a good guy. We'll get away from Diz and talk about Renfro Valley.
Right. You know, speaking for Hal Smith, John Lair, and all the people here, they're really awful pleased that you could make it up, and the job you did here today was just tremendous.
Thank you. There's one thing that I failed to mention on that program that I was out there, and I hope that the folks will be listening now that were listening or will be listening and know that I was here. I failed to tell the folks that Hal Smith at one time was fiddling for me. I had Hal on my program, and Velma, his wife, Velma Williams, which is, of course, Velma Smith now. Velma played with me for years, and we were under tents together, and she's a lovely lady. She is a wonderful musician.
Sure.
And truthfully, as far as the 2 musicians are concerned, Velma is far out on her in advance of her husband, Hal. She's wonderful with voice and guitar, and she does a lot of sessions and recordings. She was doing real good there, and her father got sick, and that's one reason that she kind of dropped out of it. Yeah.
Do you suspicion that maybe the reason Hal went into the business end of it, he couldn't quite keep up with the competition in the family?
It's getting pretty tough for him. I guess that would be one one reason. But I tell you, he has proved himself to be a very good businessman. He did real good with the Pamper Music Company, and then of course he's invested in his money up in here. And Hal will do good. And I do wish him well here with his adventures in Renfro Valley. John Lyer done so well with it all through the years. It needs somebody else now to carry the ball a little farther, and Hal can do it.
He really can.
Yes, and I think that they started something with the Fiddlers Contest. I'm looking forward maybe to next year of it being much, much bigger and much better, because I don't think it was maybe advertised as highly as it should be. In other words, so a lot of people up in Indiana and in the eastern part of Kentucky and western part of Kentucky, down in Tennessee, Alabama, there's a lot of them folks here today, but it will get bigger, bigger, and bigger, and we got to have some way to let them know it.
That's right. But really it did real well for our first time.
Oh, I would think so, yes. Yeah.
And as an annual event, it just seems it would be terrible not to have this back. I mean, the way it's went over and the way these people, the good time they had, the old timers getting together,
yes.
Investing, it was really something.
Well, they will have to build the barn bigger. One day it'll spread out, especially for the Fiddlers Contest. I'm satisfied that it will, and maybe your Saturday nights, Sunday programs, whatever you're doing here, will become bigger as you advertise along.
Surely, I think it's on the way. Roy, we won't keep you too long. We certainly appreciate your time, and we're wanting you back in Renfro Valley just as quick as you can get back. If you don't get back, if you get back tomorrow at noon, it'll be a little too late.
Well, thank you, Glenn. And I do want to say that my first visit to Renfro in all of my professional career, I always wanted to come here. Told Hal when I was invited, I said, thank you, I will be there, and I hope that we can have a nice crowd. But the weather here has been terrible today. It was terrible this morning, and our crowd wasn't maybe as big as could be expected, but I think that it'll brighten up. It's a good evening here this evening, and a lot of people are coming in, and I think this will be successful, and I'm looking forward maybe to seeing or at least hearing from you as being successful in the years to come.
Sure. We surely appreciate you stopping by and talking to us.
Thank you, Glenn.
We'll see you then.
Thank you.